بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the broadcasts of the Ahmadiyya Anjuman Ishat Islam. You might have noticed that we have slightly changed the format of our broadcasts, whereas previously we used to have just one broadcast, 15-20 minutes in Urdu, 15-20 minutes in English. We had lots of requests from people asking us to actually separate them so that people can just click and know they will get Urdu or English. So we implemented this suggestion by our brothers. I want to remind you that Ahmadiyya Anjuman Isha'at Islam was created by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian. And he believed that the Holy Prophet Muhammad is the very last prophet. And no prophet, not an old one, not a new one, will come after the Holy Prophet Muhammad. We believe that the Holy Quran is complete and perfect. There are people who say that there are verses missing from the Quran, or there are people who say that some verses of the Quran have been abrogated. He said this is completely wrong. And he also said that it is not allowed to judge a man's faith. The Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that if a person who recites the kalima calls another reciter of the kalima a kafir, a heretic, an infidel, then it is the caller who goes out of the fold of Islam. This is the Holy Prophet Muhammad's instruction to us. It is not for us to judge a man's faith. What Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib claimed can be seen or could be seen from the inscription on his tombstone, which was placed there under the signature of Maulana Nuruddin, and which said, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, landlord of Qadian, Mujaddad of the 14th century of Hijrah, the promised Messiah, and Mahdi. This makes it clear what the whole Jamaat believed him to be when he passed away. Because you or I didn't put that tombstone, that inscription on his tombstone. It was put there by the person who was elected to lead the Jamaat, Hazrat Maulana Nuruddin Sahib Rahmatullah, and with the consensus of the whole Jamaat, because no one objected to it. No one said it is wrong. We have been analyzing the Holy Quran verse by verse, word by word to try and see what hidden meanings there are in it for us at this time, because the Holy Quran has a message for the whole of humanity for all ages. So when times change, then we need to look again and see what new and hidden wonders there are in its message. This is why the Holy Prophet said that after a long period has passed, then God will send people to guide Muslims. And in that we had got as far as section 6 of the second chapter, Al-Baqarah, or the cow. And I got it wrong. It's not section 6. I was puzzled because while I was addressing you, somehow the pages got flipped over. And I sort of just looked at it and didn't check. It's verse 42, section 5 of the Holy Quran. And because we've separated the two broadcasts, I will recite the Arabic as well. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تلبسوا الحق بالباطل وتكتموا الحق وأنتم تعلمون. And its English translation is, and mix not up truth with falsehood, nor hide the truth, while you know what the truth is. And the three words I want to look at are, the first one is talbisu, and its root, mastar as it's called, is lam, ba, and sin. And for Urdu speaking people, it should be very easy if they think about it, because libas, malboos, libas meaning clothing, they're all words of Urdu and their derivation is exactly the same. And in English, you can say it means covering. So your clothes that you wear, they cover you, and anything that covers anything else comes under that. But it also applies to covering the truth. And this word is also used for confusion and expressing yourself in a way which is not clear. And different people who read or hear what you've said, they draw different conclusions from it. And we see this happening a lot of the time, when two countries, leaders of two countries have a meeting, they have a summit, and they need to put out some kind of a media release. And we see that they discuss and debate with each other the words that will basically mislead people. A's supporters will think, oh, we got everything we wanted. B's supporters will say, we got everything we wanted. And we saw this to our heart's content when the negotiations were taking place about Brexit and so on. But along came coronavirus and wiped that from the television news. So the Holy Quran says, don't cover it up. And or don't create confusion. Be clear about what you're saying and what you want. And the next word is haq. Ha, qaf, qaf. And that means to prove, to establish. It means, let's go back to the story of Joseph when he goes back to his father as related in the Holy Quran. And he says that what I saw in a vision or a dream, what happened later on was haq. What he meant by it was, it came to be. It came to be. It was proven. And another way to look at it is something that is a perfect fit. You observe a phenomena, and then something is said about that phenomena, and what is said perfectly fits what has been observed. We have day and night, and we have the seasons, and we say, well, the sun is, the moon is rotating on its axis, and the earth is rotating on its axis, and this is why we get day and night, and the moon and the sun together, they're rotating around the sun, and etc., etc. This explanation is a perfect fit for what you see. Very interesting and good example is what Japanese carpenters do. And in fact, it's an old technique. It was used by Muslims and probably in the West and so on as well. Because in the days of old, people did not use nails or screws to hold bits of wood together. What they would do would be, I don't know what you would call it, take a piece of wood and make a little thing like this, and then they will take one piece of wood and they'll make a hole in it, and they'll put this in the hole, and then they take the other piece of wood that they want to join, make a hole in that, and put this, the other side, into that hole. And it fitted perfectly. It's that kind of perfect fit that we are talking about here. And of course, the next word is batil, ba, pa, lam, and it's the antonym of haq. It is the exact opposite of something fitting something. So, and another way to look at it is that it is something that when you judge it against a standard or a measure, it doesn't fulfill all the requirements of that standard and that measure. But if we look at this, the background, I will repeat again, is, I explained it previously, but the background is that there was this rich Arab called Ka'b bin Ashraf, he used to do lots of favors for the Jews. And when the Holy Prophet Muhammad made his claim, as we know, people would go to Jews and Christians and ask them. We know that when the Holy Prophet told his wife Khadija that angel had come to him with a revelation, she took him to her cousin, Warqa bin Nawfal, and said, look, my husband is saying this, and so well, it's a long story, so we won't go into that. But the point was, it was common that people would go and say to Jews and Christians, look, in your holy book, it talks about prophets coming. It talks about, Abraham and Moses and David and whoever else there is. What about this guy? What about the Holy Prophet Muhammad? How does he fit in? The other reason they asked them was this, that the Jews were waiting for 3 prophets. There was Elijah, and Jesus himself said, well, John the Baptist came in the spirit of Elijah. So they asked him, what about the Messiah? And Jesus said, I'm the Messiah. The Holy Prophet Jesus was the Messiah. And then they put to him, or that prophet. So there was that prophet. And I asked this question in Islamabad, and I have to salute this couple. They were from America. They both had PhDs, and they would go door to door. I don't know if they would do it now, but this is some years ago. They were going from door to door, preaching Christianity to interested people, not just anyone. So they'd get a reference. And one day they knocked on my father-in-law's door, and he said to me, you might go and want to chat to these people. And I went down and we chatted. And I, when they realized that I was a Lahori MD, they said, our elders have instructed us not to engage these people in debate. So I said, well, don't debate with me, but here is a question for you. And perhaps you can give me an answer. And it was this question, Elijah, Messiah, that prophet. 3 people are being mentioned. So who's the third one? You have to explain. And they went away. They said they lost their elders. And to their credit, they did come back with a reply. And I have to admire their honesty as well, because they gave me the reply, and I said, look, let's test it. And they said, how? I said, if you accept this reply as being reasonable explanation, then I'll accept it. I won't insult you by arguing with you. And they looked at me and they said, head on heart, even we are not satisfied by this explanation. So I said, well, there we are. But anyway, so what I'm saying is, from then until now, this thing was extremely well known. So people would go to Jews and Christians and ask. And and this Ka'b was a very rich and powerful man, and he used to do lots of favors. So one day, apparently once a year, he used to throw them a huge party and, all this kind of thing. So one day he asked them, what about Muhammad's claim? And they said, oh yeah, it's mentioned in our books, because they thought Ka'b is an Arab and he'll be flattered and pleased. They weren't concerned about the truth. They just wanted to flatter and please this rich and powerful man. And he became angry, and he said, in that case, go away. No more favors for you. and no more presents for you either. So they said, hang on, you didn't give us a chance. You just unexpectedly raised this question, the testaments are this thick. How are we supposed to know it all? Give us a chance to go and study it and so on. And then they went back and they studied it. And many of the prophecies about the advent of the Holy Prophet Muhammad in the Old Testament and so on, they hid. They didn't mention them. And any that they mentioned, Imam Ibn Kathir says they made it sound as if they're about the Antichrist. But anyway, they made it sound as if those prophecies are about someone else. So they're doing two things. They're hiding the truth, as the verse of the Holy Quran says, and they're also mixing truth and falsehood. And what we have to remember is this, that it is useful and instructive to have the background of why a certain revelation came. But at the same time, we have to remember that the Holy Quran is a guidance for all humanity. It's a guidance for all humanity, for all ages. So any of its verses, their message, their guidance can't just be restricted to that time. I mean, just apply this verse to a family. If a husband and wife, they hide things from each other, they mix up the truth with falsehood. Even if they don't lie to each other, they mix up the truth, or they say things in a way so that, if a husband says to the wife, do something, and the wife doesn't want to do it, she expresses it in a way that the husband thinks she's going to do it, but she's not going to do it. When he says, why didn't you do it? She said, well, I told you I wasn't going to do it. Didn't I say this? Going back to my example of communiques issued after political summits. And just think about this. What will happen to this family if the children lie to their parents? If the parents lie to the children, what would happen to a business where people didn't tell the truth and they were lying to each other? If you look at it, a lot of legislation, what is Trade Descriptions Act? Trade Descriptions Act is a modern day application of this verse of the Holy Quran. You go to buy a car, it's got to be, well, you go and buy anything, it has to be fit for purpose. So don't hide anything. Don't tell the man the brakes work when they don't. Don't put it in a confusing way to give the impression that they work when they don't work. The whole of this kind of legislation is actually an application of this verse of the Holy Quran. And there's hadith as well that the Holy Prophet said, don't hide what is wrong with your produce. There was someone selling in the market and the Holy Prophet passed by and the man was trying to hide the damaged crop so that when a customer came, he would mix the damaged and the good crop together and give it to him. What does this say? Don't mix up truth with falsehood. So this is what you have to do, I think. You don't have to just think, oh, combination of this will happen. No, that's an interesting story. So that's why that was revealed. Yes. but it also had a message for humanity for the rest of eternity. I take my leave of you until we meet again tomorrow at 7 p.m. for the Urdu lecture and 7:30 p.m. for the English lecture. I pray that Allah keeps all of you safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, and goodbye.